What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show bringing you all the action from the Premier League and SerieA England and Italy. I am your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you?
Good. Special weekend edition of Top Bins. That was because I was on vacation. I wasn't able to do the Wednesday show. I'm back feeling refreshed. Did a lot of housework. Still got more housework to do. And I hurt my back at the gym. Some things could be better. Some things are good. That's just how life is.
The old man trifecta, right there. You love to see it. It is our last show for a little bit, at least with me, because I will be away. So we're leaving you with a gift, however, in that we are highlighting some of the names that you'll be hearing over the next few weeks, and maybe we'll have transfers by the time that I'm back on this show at the end of July. We are doing the same thing we did last week, where we highlighted 5 players from the Premier League to keep an eye on that could be transferred or on the move, or at least linked a lot in the press. You're going to see these names a lot, and it helps to know at least a little bit about them. So when you see their names in the headlines, you already know just a little bit about what that player is like, what they're good at. We do the same thing for Italy. So these are all players within the Serie A that could be on the move. One of these guys already is on the move, but maybe some Bundesliga fans, mostly Bayern fans, will be interested in hearing about Kim Min-jae a little bit later in the show. But let's start with Rasmus Højlund, one of the names that we've brought up over the course of the season, because he had sort of a mini breakout, let's call it, in the winter period of the Serie A season. He had a few weeks where he really burst onto the scene, having made a transfer to Atalanta, and started to look like a player that was certainly capable of leading the line at a club like Atalanta, which over the last few years has, of course, produced a lot of goal-scoring moments and players. Højlund, he's been linked quite a bit to England as well, especially to Manchester United, who are certainly on the search for a number 9, someone to finish off a lot of chances. One thing that is very apparent whenever you watch him play is his insane speed. He has the ability to outpace most, top-level defenders. He was doing this a lot when he was in Austria, but really continued in Serie A. You've seen him really push his way past players and honestly not even look too bothered by it. He's a guy that definitely has kind of that top-level speed that you're looking for. Another really interesting thing about him, too, is he naturally gets comped to Erling Haaland a lot. Now, he's Danish. He's not Norwegian. But, they have a similar type of build, and, they're just like tall, blonde Nordic men. And, they do, they are of a similar, like, physical profile. He's not as, like, wide as Erling Haaland is. He doesn't have maybe that big boxy frame, but he is tall. They both are left footers as well, which is obviously a little interesting. And one thing that I think separates him from Haaland, though, is already, and he's only 20 years old, is that he's very comfortable receiving the ball at his feet. He's very happy to track back and sort of hold up play. If you look at his progressive passes received, he's a guy that is, dropping between lines and is happy to pick up the ball. But he's also happy, of course, to play on that last man. So I think what that tells me already is he's got very good instincts. If you watch a lot of his goals that he's scored, he's a guy that makes those late runs or late adjustments to runs. Just finds himself in the right position. Those are often the harder things to kind of teach, right? It's one thing to say that this is a guy that just has a lot of speed and can get behind. I think the awareness, intelligence that you see from him is definitely a promising thing at his age. And another elite thing that he does very well is when he shoots, it is on target. He's a guy that, his shot on target percentage is pretty impressive as I pull it up here.
It's a 94th percentile among forwards, so it's really efficient.
He's getting a shot on target 54.7% of the time. Just for fun, I like to compare players to players within their own league. So compared to Lautaro Martinez, Rafa Leao, Ciro Immobile, Dusan Vlahovic, Victor Osimhen, a pretty good blend, I think, of some of the attacking talent in Serie A. You're not just getting one type of player. He is by far the best at getting shots on target out of that group of players. In fact, the second best out of that group is Lautaro Martinez, actually, with 40.8%. So he is definitely a cut above in terms of when he does get a shot off, he is good at getting it on target. You hope if the volume increases, which it certainly can at a club like Atalanta, that he keeps those numbers up, because this is a guy that you're talking about has those underlying abilities, underlying attributes that could get him to, a 20 goal a season in the league, and that'd be really impressive.
I think some other things that stand out are within possession. Like he's in the 86th percentile for touches in the attacking third, 93rd percentile in touching for touches in the attacking penalty area, with also 3.68 take-ons attempted, which is the 92nd percentile, with 1.37 being successful per 90. He's also in the 93rd percentile when it comes to carries into the penalty area. So this is a guy who likes, like you said, is very comfortable receiving it at his feet, but he's also very aggressive with it. He's not like, one of those link up type strikers where he's getting rid of the ball real quick and trying to make a run. He's going to take the ball on. He shows that confidence. He can take a defender one-on-one and get himself to a position to make a play. You talked about some of the other stats, like the progressive passes received. So he's always looking to get into the open spots. He's not going to get you a lot of yellow cards. He hasn't been found offside a lot either, which is very promising. When you got a player, where was it? I literally just had it. 0.29 per 90, which is in the 90th percentile. So, he's very efficient. And, may talk about it later in the show, but there's some new offsides rules that are going to be experimented and tested in Italy. So guys like this can take advantage of that and really, burst onto the scene. I find it interesting, the players that are said that are similar to him. You see, the first few are like these kind of tweener forwards. They're very pacey, can play out wide, but can also play in right down the middle, like Balogun, Timo Werner, and Kolo Muani. But then you've also got guys like Lukaku, Lewandowski, Ben Yedder, like these guys who are a lot more clinical. They like the ball at their feet. They're going to make a play. You know what I mean? So like he's got a nice mix of that pace, like you said, but it's not just pace, right? He can also play it at his feet. He can also make a play. He's not afraid to carry the ball and take on a defender, which I think a lot of teams look for in a striker.
I do think one weakness of his is he has to improve on aerial duels. Only wins them 37% of the time this past season. Compared to someone like Osimhen, right, who's winning them at 54.6% of the time.
Especially at his height.
He's got a big frame. He should be doing better. Some of this is about positioning, and there's other athletic traits that help you win headers, right? But he's getting outpaced by Lautaro Martinez in that regard too. Who's winning 48.6% of his aerial duels. You'd like to see that improve again at his height. You expect that he should be competing better in the air and doing a little better in that regard. I mean, he is asked to do it a good amount, and so that's obviously gonna keep you from being like really at an elite percentage, right, when you're doing it so much. But he really should be doing better with that, and I think that's something to consider. Because listen, long balls, especially if he goes to a place like Manchester United, right, they're not afraid to hit it long and be a little more direct. That is a valid tactic, and United certainly are capable of doing that when you look at the profile, especially of like their defenders. So that's an area of his game, if you're looking at to improve, I think is one to highlight. I think this is a guy to me that I would really love to see in SerieA next season for a full season again. I think would really, really benefit from just having another sort of developmental season. I really think a transfer out of Atalanta would be, I don't want to say disastrous for him, but I think it has more potential to go wrong than just staying another year and developing. I think we saw a good half season from him in SerieA. I'd like to see a full season with him. I'd like to see him just have some time to progress and grow, because I still think he's green. I still think this is a guy that's not as clinical as you'd like him to be, and I just think all that pressure of being like the number 9 at some bigger club, where the expectations are so much higher, I think could be a challenge for him.
Even within SerieA?
I think even within SerieA, I think Atalanta is a great spot for him. Again, I don't want to say there's no pressure at a club like Atalanta, but that's the kind of place where if you're getting just like good opportunities, if you're getting 15, 16 goals a season, you're going to be able to develop as a player and improve. And there's not going to be that pressure on you to be chasing the Scudetto, chasing Coppa Italia, chasing European commitments. Like everything is sort of I don't know. Atalanta are a club that are more focused on developing players and selling them rather than necessarily with the aim of winning SerieA, right? And I think that would be kind of just. I think it's a good scenario. It's a good situation for him, and I think he'd do well to stay there. To me it reminds me a lot of Osimhen last year when we were talking about him, that I really wanted to see him stay at Napoli another season. Scamacca as well. I feel like Højlund is in that like category for me of guys I would just really like to see stay, and I think it'd benefit a lot from having another season in Italy.
Mm-hmm. He was electric. I agree. When you look at Atalanta's like style of play, if it's built up through the center, it's normally smaller, shorter passes that are played, 2 feet or in behind for the striker to run on. There's not a lot of, long ball. Like you said, Manchester United plays. Really the only type of crossing is coming from their fullbacks when they get, down the line and play a ball into the box. So maybe his numbers in the air could be skewed a little bit from that, but I do agree he does need to, become more efficient in the air. He's only 20 years old, so he's still got a lot of room to grow. So yeah, I could see another. I agree with you. I think another season in SerieA would be good for him.
Next on our list, Davide Fratesi.
It's hot. This is a hot prospect.
Yes, this is a guy that you heard last year. I think some rumors about him, but just felt maybe a little too soon. This season, however, he had another strong season at Sassuolo, and teams are certainly circling him. It is going to be a question of the price, though. That's definitely going to be a big factor because Sassuolo are not necessarily willing to see him go. They're also likely losing Maxime Lopez, another midfield sort of maestro for them. So I don't know that they're necessarily going to want to be replacing 2 starting midfielders in one summer. They have their own project that they're building on, but he's a really, really good midfielder, and still at a good age, and you expect has room to grow. He's 23 now. This will be his 23, age 24 season. And you look at him play, and he just has like all the hallmarks of just a really nice, well-rounded box-to-box midfielder. He's been linked a lot to Inter to be a Brozovic type replacement. He does things a little differently from Brozovic. He fulfills a different role. Brozovic kind of has that more classic holding midfield and just pulling the strings from there type of situation. Fratesi gets forward quite a bit, which is definitely highlighted by his goal tally as well. He's very comfortable getting into the final third. But I mean, every way you look at him, I think he's got a lot to like, and he's got a good profile. I think a team that ends up with him is going to be very happy. And he's got this good. He's a good passer. Like, there's really not a part of his game that I think is really weak. He's obviously not great necessarily at breaking up play, but I think you fit him into a midfield 3. You can sort of do you don't need him necessarily to be that guy that's going through and making tons of defensive plays.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, when it does come to his defensive play, he is very low per 90 in challenges lost. So when he does go into a challenge, it's normally won, and he kind of picks and chooses those. Also, pretty high percentile and percentage of dribblers tackled per 90. So he does like getting into a tackle every now and then. He sees the ball a lot in Sassuolo's system. Like you said, it's one of those guys who helps with the build-up play. And because of that, you can obviously see that his pass, statistics are a little bit lower. As he becomes more efficient and he gets put into the right system, I think that can obviously change. But when you see like his assist total is pretty low. I don't think he has any per 90. So he's not more of like the attacking guy. He will bring the ball and carry it forward. But he's one of those guys that is going to sit in the midfield. He's your rock. He can go forward. He can go play defense. But he's kind of the guy that does things that don't get shown on the stat sheet. You know what I mean? He's being touted by not only Inter, but both Milan teams. I'm pretty sure, was Juventus interested in him as well?
Juventus is linked to everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a Prem team or two that's interested in him. Like, his name's getting thrown everywhere. He's obviously like ready to move from Sassuolo. That project that Sassuolo has had, when we were seeing them, kind of higher up on the table is starting to die. So, I think he's the next one. I think it's like the last like year or two also, at the end of every season, he's been like talked about leaving and he's stayed. And I think he's finally ready. He's turning 24 soon. So he's at that point in his career. I think he's ready for the next step.
Yeah, I think too. Like he's a guy that likes to play those kind of like breaking line passes, and it can be a little bit of a bad habit with him too, where he tries to. I don't want to say force the Hollywood ball a little bit too much, but that's something I've definitely noticed in him. But yeah, it's an interesting midfield that he was operating in too, because he obviously was partnering with Maxime Lopez a lot, and both of them I think are very creative midfielders, and I think Maxime Lopez is better at it, and therefore tactically was asked to do it a little bit more. So maybe there's even untapped stuff with Fratesi. I think he's a good, solid midfielder. I think Milan, especially, if you're talking about a Sandro Tonali replacement, I think he's actually better than Sandro Tonali. It just, again, my unbiased opinion, and I think could probably cost half of what they sold Tonali for, and arguably make an improvement. So that would be something interesting. We'll see if that happens. It doesn't seem totally clear if Milan are going that direction, but wherever he plays next year, I think is going to have a good midfielder. Whether it's at Inter, Sassuolo, wherever, he's going to be a guy that you're going to be seeing of. And listen, it's a Euro year as well. Maybe staying at Sassuolo for one more season and, lock yourself into maybe even a starting position in that Italian midfield. I think it's pretty open, next summer who could be starting. I don't know. Outside of Barella, I don't know, even someone like Marco Verratti, if he can't stay healthy or depending on what he chooses next for his club career, it's not a guarantee. Like, I think Barella is the only one that I feel confident saying this time next year will be regularly starting for Italy at the Euros.
What about Tonali?
Tonali's never been called up by Mancini. Like, Mancini was like crying about how a player like that shouldn't be leaving Italy. Well, he like barely calls him up. Like, he's a guy that's like, so no, he's not he's certainly not a guarantee to me if he's like barely had any senior national team calls up. He's more of a U23 guys at the moment. So yeah, I think that should factor in maybe a little bit to Frattesi's decision as well. But again, you move to a club like Inter and you get yourself on the highest stage. Playing in the Champions League, potentially competing for a title. That also has a big benefit to you. So a lot to consider on the kind of the edges for Frattesi. Let's get to this guy, shall we? Kim Min-jae led the defense for Napoli this past season. Just an absolute rock. One of the best defenders, not just in SerieA but all of Europe last year. It is not official yet, but it is Fabrizio Romano official that he'll be going to Bayern Munich, which is a great signing for them. They lose Luca Hernandez, he goes to PSG, and they replace him with Kim Min-jae. He'll likely be partnering with De Ligt. It seems like he might be kind of working into Upamecano's space. Just a great midfielder, great defender. I slip and call him a midfielder.
The way he passes,
the way he passes is very midfielder-esque. He has just about everything that you want out of sort of a modern defender, if you can think of what that might mean. Great physical traits. I mean, you just look at his physical profile as well. Just when you watch him play, you can tell he's a guy that is going to put in hard and physical challenges. Good in the air, good at aerial duels, which is always a plus, and is definitely going to be something he's going to have to contend with in Bundesliga, because they love to test the back lines quite a bit. But yeah, I think the biggest elite skill that he holds is that passing, is that comfortability on the ball. He's great at playing the long ball as well. He has a 72.5% completion rate on long passing. That's very good. Just comparing, here are some of the other center backs that compared him to. William Saliba from Arsenal, who had to really stand out, like 3/4 of the season until he got injured. Virgil van Dijk, who's like my litmus test for all like modern defenders, in my opinion. Ruben Dias, Alessandro Bastoni, and Rafael Varane. 72.5% completion rate on long passes. William Saliba is the only one on that list that was better than him last season at 75%. Virgil van Dijk just a tick below at 70.9, and Ruben Dias at 70.4. These are, again, some of the elite names when you're talking about, center backs within Europe or center backs within Italy or England. And he is, right up amongst them. And I think he's going to have a great time at Bayern. I think he's a great signing. I think especially too, he doesn't, and there's that Maldini quote, which gets overused a lot about how if you have to make a tackle, you've already made a mistake or whatever. But It's true, in some ways. And he doesn't make a ton of tackles. When he does, though, he is making them assuredly.
Successful, yeah.
Very, very successful tackler. He's not a guy that's really putting foot wrong very often. He avoids fouls quite a bit as well. He's not someone that's going to, really be, racking too many up. It is going to be a little concern, though, once you get to Bundesliga, where, again, there's more goals, there's a lot more action. He does have, I wouldn't say a foul problem, but he's somewhere between, I'm not worried about him in the sense that he gives away too many, but he's also not a totally, flawless defender in that regard. So that's something that, it could be an issue. Yeah, I think that was Upamecano's trouble at time too, is that he maybe got a little overwhelmed and resorted a little too much just physical manhandling and fouling rather than just playing through. So that'll be something to look at for Kim Min-jae.
Yeah, I mean, arguably the signing of the season for Napoli. Everybody wants to talk about Vicha's Kvaratskhelia, but Kim Min-jae was what locked it down. They sold Kalidou Koulibaly, and they basically found his South Korean replacement. He's a very, he's cut from the same cloth type of player, just always good in possession, is not afraid to, carry the ball, take it forward a little bit. And like you said, he passes so well. And one thing that really stood out to me was when you're looking at the passes, he's one of the higher percentiles for through balls from among center backs. So he likes to play the ball forward. Given Napoli's system where, you have a front three that can get in behind, you can play these long balls in and really, catch a team on the counter quickly. I think being at Bayern, it's one and the same, right? The team he's going to fits his mold, and being paired with a guy like Matthijs de Ligt, I think is going to do wonders for Bayern. I think he's fit so well. I mean, it sucks that he was only in SerieA for one season. I think that he could have been top defender for many years if he stayed at Napoli. But now he's at Bayern. I think he's at a team where his skill level deserves to be at, and the strong get stronger.
Wow. A little shade on Napoli there. Yeah, Napoli, we talked a lot about, too, this season. We're just very pass-heavy team, one of the most pass-heavy teams in all of Europe, not even just in Italy. And he was a big part of that, and defenders oftentimes are a big part of the passing and build-up play and making the first decision, which a lot of times just has to be the smart decision. So he had a lot of responsibility within that system. Yeah, and it's going to be curious to see, de Ligt, that's obviously a skill set that he has as well. I think it gives maybe a little bit more flexibility to Bayern's back line, would be my guess. And, that's a team, again, that has lots of great creative options within the midfield. And I think
Could we see a back three at Bayern?
Could, for sure. Tuchel has gone that direction before. It's going to be very interesting to see who Bayern get as a number 9, as a striker. We had talked a little bit about the rumors of Harry Kane going there. In the last week, that's become a little more concrete. If that's going to happen at all, who knows? But, I do wonder, whoever they get at number 9, that's going to be a vital part of their system. Harry Kane, I think, would be an unreal signing for Bayern. I would be very concerned if I was a Bundesliga fan if that would happen. But, I think Kim Min-jae is a great addition and, is going to be probably an upgrade on what they have, to be honest.
Yeah.
And listen, Luka Hernandez is good as well, but he just couldn't stay healthy. And I think ultimately, Kim Min-jae is going to step in and provide some more solidity, which is really what they're looking for. Because defensively for last season, Bayern, not great. It was not a great year. And it was one of the reasons the title went down to the final day, was because of that defensive instability.
Isn't there a certain age South Koreans have to go do their mandatory military service? Has he already done that?
He was part of the Asian games that Heung-min Son was a part of, that they won, and they got excused from military service. He still does they have to go do their 2 or 3 weeks of training or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that he is excused, that he's
Because it was kind of the same thing with the Olympics. There's a couple golfers.
Yeah.
They medaled.
Right. So yeah, in South Korea, if you perform some sort of big, especially athletic achievement, South Korea team won the Asian Games in 2018 or 2019, I don't remember. And that was how Heung-min Son actually was able to sort of get out of military
But
service.
I thought he still did it though, didn't he?
There's the 2-year mandatory military service that you have to do, which can
Oh,
they do
yeah.
in the off season. Like that's where Kim and Jay has been, and like they just do
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
drills, like it's like if you have like a friend in the National Guard, how they go away for like 2 weeks every now and again to like do whatever. Like it's a similar type of thing. So
So Byron
he's
doesn't have
not
to like worry about him
no,
like.
he's not going to be
Yeah.
missing 2 years of his career, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Next man on the list, Sofian Amrabat, midfielder from Fiorentina. Very curious where he's ending up because he's linked to, I mean, honestly, just about everyone.
Yeah.
From Bayern down to Juventus to Barcelona to Liverpool to Napoli to staying at Fiorentina.
Milan, everybody, man.
Yeah, everyone has been linked to Amrabat at some point this year. He's an interesting player. He's this sort of he's a deep-lying midfielder, sort of in the mold of like a Brozovic in that his best attributes are sort of breaking up play, recycling it. A pretty good passer of the ball, but I wouldn't say he's elite at anything necessarily. He's again an accurate passer. I would say his one almost elite skill is definitely that long passing. In fact, I think you probably could classify it as elite. He's got an 84.1% long pass completion, and that's on 258 attempts. This guy's not just like dinking a few and just making up the numbers. Like he is a guy that you can depend on pretty regularly to find his man with those long passes. Outside of that, he's in some ways a little bit of a destructive midfielder, but isn't someone that I would say is like elite at that ability. He's not someone like an N'Golo Kante of years past that is really breaking up and hoovering up just about every attacking option. He's a guy though that again I think very similar to me in Brozovic in that very, very accurate passer, going to make a smart pass for you, can break up play, is a great like midfield partner. Maybe not a standalone like this is a lighthouse in your midfield that is going to make the world of difference. But I think is a very good like complementary piece. I think would fit in well in a lot of midfields. For that reason, it would have to be the right kind of midfield on the right kind of situation because he's not totally well-rounded. But I think a guy that, again, when you consider just that great passing, completion that he has and the pretty good defensive work rate that he has, this is a guy that I think would make sense for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I mean, he really, really blew up, I think, onto more people's radars thanks to his performances for Morocco in the World Cup. I think he was one of the standout players for them in that competition. Started all 7 of their games, and you kind of said it best, right? Like he doesn't stand out as the guy that gets a lot of those passes that. Oh, excuse me, my back's bothering me. He's not a guy that is going to do that final pass and rack up a lot of assists and things like that. But he's kind of in that we've brought up Tonali a few times, but he's kind of that same mold, right? But like more like what Milan tried to make Tonali play, which was more of like a Gattuso role. But like he can get in, he can get into the dirty areas, win tackles, and then play long balls to the open guy, keep possession. I don't know how I feel about him, man. I think that he's good where he's at. I don't think he needs to leave.
He's an interesting player in that you're buying him pretty much at his prime. He's 26. You expect that whoever signs him, if they do, a 4-year contract, is going to see him through his best years, most likely. And I think that is a worry because he's not. Again, I don't think he's necessarily like an elite midfielder. I think he's a good midfielder. I think is like capable of playing at say like a Champions League level. I don't think he would be like out of place on that on a team like that. But I don't know that he's on a title-winning midfield necessarily. Like he could, but I think that a team that has that ambition is maybe has better options. And I think that's why he's linked to so many places too, is because he's just sort of a guy that I think could make sense, but I think I don't want to say big fish, small pond, but I think Fiorentina is the right size club for him because he can sort of have these big, sort of responsibilities, and sort of you get to see the best of his attributes and his abilities. But I don't think at a larger club where there's a little bit more responsibility added to your plate, and you have to be more disciplined at times too, because he's a guy that definitely I think relies a little bit too much on dragging a man down or just chopping at someone. If you look at him play, and I think he could. I don't want to say get exposed, but I think maybe he wouldn't have the best time somewhere else.
I think he will only fit into specific systems. I think his skill set fits a team that plays a midfield 3. I don't think that he works in a double pivot or in a situation where they may have like one lone defensive midfielder. But I think he excels when he has other people, to his sides or, kind of helping him in that kind of build up and gameplay. Because like we said, he's not the most elite defensively. Like he does go into tackles and win them pretty, at a pretty high rate. But aside from that, right, he's going to need people to his sides to be able to play balls too and kind of take the pressure off of him so that he can make those types of passes that, are in his repertoire. In a double pivot, I think it's a little harder for that. You're kind of asked to do a little bit more than I think what he can do to the best of his ability.
Yeah. I don't think he's a bad player, but I just think maybe he should look at Frank Kessie at Barcelona and think maybe that's me. In a year I'll be getting sold to Saudi Arabia or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, which I mean, listen, if you want to go make your money, whatever, that's your choice. But I do think that he might be better served. And again, if he stays within Italy, I think even if he ends up at either one of the Milans, I think could have a good time, could have a successful time. But I do think Fiorentina is a pretty good spot for him. And it just doesn't. It feels like you've heard a lot about him maybe leaving with no real links, no substantive stuff. And we've been hearing about this since like February with him. It's not new. It feels like half the season has been spent talking about where he might end up, and it just hasn't really connected to any one spot.
I think just one last comment, but I think that I mentioned how he really kind of burst onto the radar through the World Cup. I think it's kind of telling that he wasn't sold in that winter transfer window post World Cup. You know what I mean? Like when it's all fresh in their mind, Morocco makes this big run in the World Cup and he's kind of, one of the rocks in midfield that helps them get there, and he doesn't move. It helps Fiorentina, right? They get to the Conference League final. Don't win it, obviously, but, they had success in the league this year. They had success in Europe this year. And, does he make a move? Who knows? Maybe Fiorentina, want to keep him. You said he's going to be in his prime years. So if they want to get the best out of him, it's not a bad piece to keep.
Yeah, I think especially, too, because there's been so much movement in SerieA this season with players and things like that. I think if you can keep a cohesive team together this summer and just add a piece or two, I think you could be in a really, really good spot in Italy this year coming up. Let's get to our last man, Nico Dominguez, playing for Bologna. A very nice player. I've seen linked again, the usual suspects in Italy, both Milan clubs, especially, but Lazio as well. A really tidy midfielder. I think goes a little under the radar as well when you talk about some of the better midfielders in Italy. Also a little bit on the younger side too. He's 25, right? So you're expecting him to be turning the page into his prime years over the next few seasons. If you get a transfer for him, you're expecting that contract you're signing is going to be, again, seeing him through a lot of his prime years. But what you're getting now, I think, is a very capable pressing midfielder with good passing stats, good defensive stats. I think he does a little bit of everything pretty well. He's again, just one of these good all-around box-to-box midfielders that I think provides, again, a team on the outskirts of the top 6 or in the top 6, that extra stability. I think a team like Fiorentina would love to have someone like Dominguez on the team. But again, even either of the Milan teams with some gaps to fill in the midfield could definitely do with Dominguez. What he does really well is kind of amazing is his aerial win rate. That's something that he's I want to say pretty good at. He's 57.8% of his aerial duels being won. But even if you look at his passing numbers, this is a guy that passes a lot of the eye test. He's not, maybe the most accurate as some of the elite guys, right? He's not touching Brozovic or Amrabat numbers, but he's pretty good in that regard. He's picking the right passes. He's definitely an intelligent player when you watch him play, and he have to be at Bologna because he's responsible quite a bit for a lot of those through passes that they work through. They had a good season this year, I think, in large part because of his play in the midfield. He was someone that was really, really impressive, and again, just someone that I think likes to play those like breaking balls. And if you're a team looking to find a midfielder that can help break down other teams, I think Dominguez is your guy. I think he's the type of player that really can do that job for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of been on my radar for a couple of years. I love watching him play when I watch the occasional Bologna game. And like you said, he does a little bit of everything. He is real aggressive, wins a lot of tackles, and like you said, he doesn't exceed like it isn't like super world class at any one specific thing, but he's very good at like everything. One thing that stood out to me is that he's in the higher percentiles for like shots on target for versus midfielders. And through balls as well. So, not only is he, looking to score himself, but he's always got his head up looking for his teammates. And then on top of that, he's also going to win tackles, and he's going to win them at a high rate, also pressing in the attacking third. So this is a guy that I would love to have at my club, man. I would just love this to pair up with some of the other guys that have been rumored, or Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who has been unveiled as a new midfielder. I think that, if they bring a guy like this and they run both of those guys in the midfield, I think that Milan is set for some big success. I mean, he's been one of the cogs that keeps Bologna running. And if you watch a Bologna game, you'll see, the camera's always ended up on him because he's always in the play. He's always, he's a workhorse, Energizer Bunny type guy. He never stops.
Yeah, I think speaking too about Loftus-Cheek, what I like about him is his ability to just carry the ball. Like and it sucks. Injuries, did a little bit of a number to him in his career, but there were times where, and I mean no joke by this, when he was playing on Chelsea, that you kind of had to you really pay attention if it was him or Hazard on the ball at times. Like he was that good on the ball in his younger days that he was his turn of pace. Obviously, some of that has been taken away, but yeah, you talk about that with Dominguez in the midfield. I think would be a good pairing for them. Even with someone like rumored like Yunus Musa, like Milan have to definitely build up that midfield. I think Dominguez is a great option too because he's probably not going to cost you the steep price that you might get for someone like Amrabat, right?
Yeah.
Or even someone like Fratesi. Like I think of those three midfielders, he might end up with the cheapest price and might be the most affordable. And I think he's still giving you a very good option. He's a very complimentary player. I don't know that there's a midfield that he wouldn't fit in. I like Amrabat, we were talking about, maybe has to be a little bit more specialized to his role or has to fit in the right kind of area. I think Dominguez could walk into a lot of teams and probably do a good job. I think he's just that type of midfielder, and I like him quite a bit. And I think he would be, Tifo does those sensible signings videos for clubs. I think he would be a sensible signing for most clubs. I think he'd be like, yeah, that's good. He's not going to you're not going to get tons of engagement on Twitter. You're not going to have some big unveiling for him. But I think, again, if you're talking about guy that's going to help you win throughout the season and be good at passing and help be a creative player, Dominguez is going to do that for you.
I want to move on to a little transfer roundup.
Let's do a little transfer roundup. Mason Mount, finally to Manchester United. It's been a long road, a lot of bids, and finally this most recent one seems to be accepted and is going to be getting done. So he'll be a Manchester United player. I think it's a pretty decent fit for him. I do wonder where exactly he fits because he's a little Bruno Fernandes already. I think again you're gonna see I guess Casemiro. He's gonna be the Fred replacement in that midfield, which I don't think is terrible for him. And then some order of Fernandes. We'll see what other midfielders maybe they potentially bring in, but not a terrible signing for United at all. I like Mason Mount. I think he's a pretty good midfielder, pretty good player. I think he gets underrated quite a bit. He had a bad year at Chelsea. almost everyone did. So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to hold that against him. This one,
I know you're happy about this one.
this is a guy that I've loved for quite some time, Dominic Soboslai. I really liked him when he went to Leipzig. I really liked his profile. I'm very, very happy that he seems to be going to Liverpool. Similar to Mason Mount, it seems like all just but officially confirmed at this point. Just a very, very good midfielder. Great energy. Decent dribbling too, especially for his physical profile. He has the foot of a traction engine, can just wrap around the ball and smash one. I'm very, very excited to see him play. I think, Liverpool have obviously needed to reshape their midfield for like 3 seasons now. I think him and McAllister, it makes me very happy, in terms of, the profile of players that we've brought in. I'm very, very excited to see him. He's a good final third midfielder that we just haven't really had either. And so I'm very much looking forward to him.
He's got a flair for the dramatic. He's got a finesse on the ball too. Like you talk about his power, like he can kind of just swing through the ball, but like he's also got a little finesse. I've seen a couple goals that he scored where he picks his corner and curls it in, like even along the ground, like those low corner shots and everything. So he can do it all. I'm excited to see what he does with Liverpool. He's got players around him that can bring the best out of him. So he's gonna be on the goals of the week. Either scoring them or setting them up. So great signing, great signing.
Very, very happy to see that business done. James Maddison confirmed officially. We got it. To Spurs. This only ended up being around £40 million, which I think is a good price for James Maddison. I think that's a little bit of a relegation price year on his contract price, but I don't think it's a bad deal at all for Spurs. I think he's the type of midfielder that they've really needed. Someone that's going to be able to bridge the gap between some of those holding options. They're going to lose Holberg this summer, it seems, as well, so probably not necessarily done with midfield signings, and obviously they have a new manager. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. It's going to be interesting to see if even Harry Kane goes, what this team looks like, but that's all beyond it. For James Maddison, though, I think he's a good midfielder. I think a good final third guy. I think similar to Declan Rice in that he at times almost gets overrated, yet also underrated because he's English. I think if there was a guy in another league or even just a guy of a different nationality doing what he's been doing over the last few years in the Premier League, he would be a much more hot commodity. I don't know that there'd be the question marks about him that maybe there are, and I think a lot of that might just have to do with him being English. Hasn't always had the best reputation for attitude. Maybe that's part of it as why, but who knows if that's actually true or not, because some people say he's a great attitude, great work ethic, whatever it is. Looking forward to seeing him at Spurs. I think it's a good signing for them. I think it's a good price. Harry Winks goes the other way, actually. He'll be at Leicester. Leicester made some interesting signings, too. They get Harry Winks and Connor Cody as well, so trying to get these guys that sort of Premier League level, but probably will be very good in the championship in Winks and Cody. So I don't think those are terrible signings going the other way. This one, Pau Torres from Villarreal to Aston Villa is a very good signing.
Emery goes and gets his guy.
I mean, honestly, they've had this habit of doing this, especially early in the transfer window. Over the last few seasons, Aston Villa, especially when they've started to invest a little bit more, they've gone out and just got their guy, and they've been like big name players that have been, bounce around. Like this is a guy that had been linked to Manchester United, last season, right, and to a lot of other big clubs. Like for Aston Villa to swoop in and get him and be able to get him as well, like before training starts and all that, like. Very, very good midfielder. Very good on the ball. I mean, just again, if you're talking about just great technical ability, this guy has it in spades. I think it's a really, really good signing, and I'm looking forward to seeing him like profile with Tyrone Mings and what that back line might look like this year. Aston Villa are definitely a team to watch. They're obviously going to try and be very competitive in Europe as well. So we'll see if they can kind of build off of that sort of surge that they had in the second half of last season.
Well, considering that they're playing in multiple competitions, now having a center back rotation, Mings, now Pau Torres is added to that. You have Diego Carlos. They have 3 quality center backs in which they can rotate and not lose a step. So I think this is a very, very, very good signing for Villa.
Yeah, Diego Carlos lost like almost the whole season to that Achilles injury last year, so have to hope that he bounces back from that. But yeah, I mean, if he's able to bounce back, I think he's a guy that you expect could be a great partner as well. So they'll, like you said, have some options on that back line. In Italy, we got Marcus Thuram to Inter. This was a hot commodity among the free agent market. An interesting signing because I don't want to say Inter have lots of options up there, but like no clear pathway necessarily for him to be starting regularly. He's just sort of and listen, like Marcus Thuram is a good player, but he's been a little underwhelming the last few years. It always felt like we were waiting for him to explode and just never quite did. That's not to say it's a bad signing. I just think people have a tendency to maybe get really overboard with this guy, and I think he's just kind of an above average forward. I don't know that he's like great, but we'll see. I don't think it's a bad signing to make on a free transfer, especially, to add some depth to your team and provide you a little bit more flexibility. But
I think Inzaghi may be switching formations in his system up, maybe. Milan Skriniar is not coming back. So their center back, I think they're losing a center back. So he may be playing like a 4-3-3. Thuram can play on the wing as well. So maybe this is Inzaghi trying to, switch things up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Lukaku is not coming back to Inter as well, right? Or they're trying to. It's
wildly unclear. Inter have, I think, the most sort of porous transfer window out of all the Italian clubs because, like you said, Skriniar is out. But Skriniar, by the way, too, is interesting because he has this like back issue. He had to get surgery for it in February and has not really fully recovered, it doesn't seem. And PSG, it's been linked. He almost went to PSG last summer. Inter blocked the move. And then it seemed like, okay, well, once he's a free agent, he's going to go to PSG. It hasn't happened yet. And I'm waiting to see what happens with Skriniar because I think there might be something with that back issue that maybe turns a team or two off. Who knows? He could even be back at Inter. It doesn't seem like it. Seems like he's very much said his goodbye, but you can't rule anything out. But he could maybe even stay somewhere in Italy. I don't know that. It's just the PSG stuff has not materialized. They've already signed Luca Hernandez. I have maybe a few question marks about where Skriniar actually ends up, but yeah, Inter have Brozovic is likely gone to Saudi Arabia, although they're haggling over the fee again. So you're talking about a center back, a midfielder, and potential striker in Lukaku all being gone. Lukaku not as important to the team as maybe those other two names were last season, but yeah, I think they have quite a few guys that could be seeing their way out the door, and they do have to make some sales too because they're not in the best financial situation. But we'll see what happens with Inter. This one, Dom, Christian Pulisic to Milan.
I don't know how I feel about this. Like everybody's looking at it this way, right? They're like, why do we need another backup for Leao? Like he's not going to get starting time. Why are they going to put all this money out for him? Because Milan is deciding, I guess, to experiment. I mean, they need a number 10. This is basically, the rumor that he is going to be Brahim Diaz's replacement. So that means that they're looking to potentially use him as a number 10. They're looking to potentially maybe use him on the right. I mean, he did those types of things at Dortmund. I mean, fairly decently. He played a little bit in the center as a number 10 for Chelsea every now and then, but everybody thinks of him as that left winger. I don't know. I mean, it could work. SerieA could be the nice change of pace that could help him, revitalize his career after, a subpar career at Chelsea. I've seen him do amazing things in Germany. I think that any U.S. soccer fan paid attention when he was with Dortmund, and he did do some great things there. It could be a great move. It could be a bad move. I think that they need to put somebody in front of him that's quality in order for him to be successful as a number 10. But because you can't really count on Giroud, right? So I don't know. I don't know. I want to love the move, but something about it, I'm not fully convinced.
Yeah, he can play on the right, and I do think is a better dribbler than outside of Leao exists at Milan, and that would be something very helpful to them. I think, again, if you're talking about him playing on the right, he's better than Salamakers and he's better than Macias. I think he is an upgrade on those guys. And so that could be good. Well, it depends on what the transfer looks like and the fee and all that, but I don't think it could be a bad signing. He's really good. If he stays healthy and gets regular time, I think could have a much better season.
I will say he is much better with the ball and more clinical with the ball than Brahim is. And I'm a Brahim apologist. I mean, I was one of his biggest, supporters when he was with Milan, but I think that Pulisic is a step above in that quality. I mean, this is a guy, you saw him do it in the World Cup as well. Like, this is the guy that the U.S. depends on in big international tournaments. So I'd love it. I mean, yeah, if you play him on the right, but didn't Milan just signed that Argentinian winger from Lazio? I forget his name, but
I don't think that's been confirmed yet.
I read that it's like very, very advanced.
I'm just saying,
but
not confirmed yet.
Not confirmed. Not a here we go yet. But I know nothing about this Danny Rojas regen, but it's Pulisic to Milan. It could work, but it's just confusing me where he's going to play, right? I do agree with you. He's their best option if they go to the right wing, but they still need a number 10 if that's the case. Are they bringing in Kamada? Who knows? It's very confusing. Like, Milan's at that weird spot. They're only allowed so many non-domestic, slots, and they're kind of filling them up with some of the other signings that they've had. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I don't know. And, I think they missed out on the next person that we're going to talk about. This one kind of went under my radar and would have been perfect for them at the right wing.
Well, Tim Weah to Juventus, a little bit underwhelming, I think, for Juventus fans. He's been shifted a lot to right back in his club career. Us, for watching the U.S. national team, are used to him playing more on the wing and in a more advanced position. He is, I think, in some ways comparable to someone Juventus just lost in Juan Cuadrado, and that can play forward, but can also provide that sort of defensive ability, and that's, I think, why he's been shifted to that area. He never really been at a club level like a really prolific scorer, and so I think, again, has some interesting attributes. I'm very curious to see how he does at Juventus. Again, if he's filling in that fullback position, I think he could actually be a really nice option for them. And he does have some creative ability, and listen, has been a part of a little team for the last few years that has done pretty well. He's part of a title-winning little team too. So I think he's an okay player. I think the price is fine. Paid 10 million euros for him. I really don't think that's a bad option at all. To potentially fill in at fullback for you in a position that you really needed to find another replacement. I don't know that he's going to be a stand-in right away for Cuadrado, who's been a stalwart for quite some time at Juventus and has been a fantastic player, fantastic option. But I do think he's a decent signing for Juventus. I think people have been a little harsh on him. And it's an interesting summer for Juventus, too, because obviously they're going to be out of European spots. And we'll see what they have to do to sell, potentially, if they're moving on from Vlahovic, someone like Chiesa. It's going to be question marks all around. It's question marks everywhere in Italy, in terms of signings. There's really not a lot of confirmed signings because everyone's kind of tight on money and they're sort of waiting almost on selling one or two players before they go out and make some other moves. So Italy's, I don't want to say the well is dry, but it is not running nearly as full as the Premier League one is.
Yeah. You mentioned the Brozovic move, right? Did you say that was confirmed?
To Saudi Arabia? No, because they initially gave a fee, the Saudi Arabian club, and now we're trying to negotiate a lower fee, and so it's not official.
We have a here we go confirmed an hour ago by Fabrizio Romano.
Well, I did not see that an hour. I don't know if you noticed, Tom, but we've been recording for an hour.
Yeah.
I try not to scroll Fabrizio Romano's Twitter the entire time.
I did it just right now. We're getting towards the end. Final thoughts. It says fee will be 18 million. Medical tests are completed. Documents are being checked with both clubs. It looks like a 3-year deal. Here we go, confirmed.
Yeah,
so
not bad. He's not a bad signing for them. Obviously, I think Inter especially were sort of pushing him along. You kind of have to make a choice, and because they I think wanted to be able to be a little more flexible in the market too. So Yeah, he's a good player for Inter. I think they'll
Mm-hmm.
miss him, but they have the opportunity to replace him now. If that's say someone like Fratesi, with a younger model, they have a Inter are very interesting to me this summer and this season coming up.
Yeah. A little more roundup. Al Ittihad is also looking to add to their signings of Conte and Benzema by going to Celtic and getting Jota, the Portuguese winger who's impressed over there. Cesc Fabregas is retiring.
Yeah, legend.
Absolute legend. I mean, I don't know what else to say. He did it with 3 clubs. It was came onto the scene with Arsenal, went back to he had the chance to go play again for his boyhood club with Barcelona and did fairly well there. And then also with Chelsea. It seems he is going to become the head coach of Como B. So he's going to be coaching in Italy. So good for him. That's cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. You talked about Cody. I don't see anything really else. It does say that. Oh, never mind. I mean, Fabrizio Romano said that Romero is joining AC Milan until June 2027. But who knows? I don't know. I don't until it's announced by the club itself. I don't believe anything that's said there. So that's about it. Chelsea seem to be signing some people, but I don't know who they are. So they're probably going to just be sent out on loan and rot in their loan system for a while. So
yeah, Chelsea have been doing a big clear out this summer and seem like they still have a few more names that could be on the move as well. But that's it. That's all we got. That's all we got for you. I'll be back in like 3 weeks, and we'll see.
Matteo via l'Italia.
Yeah, I will be enjoying stomping around Italy. Definitely be on the lookout for some SerieA kits. Looking out for some souvenirs to bring home, all that. But we're gonna obviously keep it locked on what happens with the transfers. I'm sure we'll still be putting something together for you. It is like a down part of the year as well, though. So we're obviously wanted to give you a little bit of profiles for some names that you might see on the move. But Dom, anything to say before we get out of here?
Maybe this allows me a chance for some filler content, maybe some FIFA content. Who knows? I'll miss you, man. I'll miss you, but I'll be practicing my Duolingo. So when you get back, maybe we can have a conversation in Italian.
You've been I respect the Duolingo grind. You've been putting in.
And I've seen your Duolingo grind, so
Listen, game respect game. All right.
That's that.
We'll talk to you next time. Until then, arrivederci.